Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
I'm kind of like the president, folks. I've had my fill of this crap. I just have. And I'm going to attack this from a little bit different vantage point today, with a little bit different take. I'm not going to be able to avoid the crap. We got to deal with the crap in order to refute the crap. I'm just telling you, I'm tired of doing it.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
And I'm tired of doing it. I'm tired of having to deal with it. These people are really ticking me off. All of this, it's been a slow build. I start from a vantage point of already being ticked off. But I'll tell you where I'm coming down. I actually believe that the media, and of course, its subsidiary, the Democrat Party, I think that they are actually hurting themselves. And they are totally unaware of it. And when I say hurting themselves, I'm talking about in future elections. Some of you are going to be reluctant to accept that because if you turn on any news at all, you can't help. You get immersed. You're overwhelmed. You cannot escape the crap. You simply can't escape it. But I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are escaping it by tuning it out, not paying attention to it, or else getting really ticked off themselves about it. But I don't believe that all of this garbage in the news every day now, you know, like I said yesterday, every couple of days it's something new. Now it's Stormy Daniels. Last week it was something else. Next week it'll be something else. And every one of these events, whatever it is treated as though this is it. This is the silver bullet. Now we've got him. It is patently obvious to even more and more casual observers that the whole point of all of this is to get rid of the president and to overthrow a duly constituted election. Greetings. Great to have you. Here's the phone number if you want to appear on the program. It's 800-282-2882. And remember, it's Open Line Friday, so whatever you want to talk about, have at it. Now, I was going to start here with a basic setting of the stage, just how good things are in the country, in the areas where there is improvement and where things are happening in a very, very upbeat, positive way. But there's late-breaking news here that I first got wind of about 15 minutes before the program, and all I had was one-line little news slugs. I didn't even have the source. But the one-line little news slugs were, judge in Manafort case tells prosecutor he's overstepping. I said, what? So I kept scouring for details, and all I found was additional slug lines. Well, right before the program started, full news stories hit, and Reuters is the primary source here. The federal judge that's overseeing the Paul Manafort case in Virginia, it's a judge appointed by Ronald Reagan, by the way. Her name is Amy... name is Amy... Amy Berman Jackson, and she's a Reagan appointee. And she has expressed deep skepticism in the bank fraud case that's being brought by Mueller's office against Paul Manafort, at one point saying, believes that Mueller's motivation is to oust Trump from office. A federal judge said this. I'm sorry, this is Judge T.S. Ellis. I've got two competing stories here. What is this Judge Amy Berman Jackson? I guess it's two judges here. Now, let's go with the first story here. You don't really care about Mr. Manafort's bank fraud, District Judge T.S. Ellis said to prosecutor Michael Dreeben, at times losing his temper. Ellis said prosecutors were interested in Manafort because of his potential to provide material that would lead to Trump's prosecution or impeachment. That's the judge. That's what you're really interested in, said Ellis, who was appointed by Reagan. He repeated his suspicion several times in an hour-long court hearing. At one point, Ellis posed a hypothetical question, speaking as if he were the prosecutor, about why Mueller's office referred a criminal investigation about Trump's personal attorney Michael Cohen to New York authorities and kept the Manafort case in Virginia. And Ellis, mimicking a prosecutor, said, were they not interested in it to further our core effort to get Trump? Okay, that's the CNN version. Here is the Reuters version. U.S. judge questions special counsel's powers in Manafort case. And this story says the judge is Amy Berman Jackson. Something's odd here. A U.S. federal judge in Virginia sharply questioned the scope of Robert Mueller's prosecutorial powers on Friday. I wonder if we're dealing with a hack here. A federal judge in Virginia sharply questioned the scope of special counsel Robert Mueller's prosecutorial powers on Friday as part of legal proceedings over Paul Manafort and his efforts to dismiss an indictment against him. At hearing at the federal courthouse in Alexandria, U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson said Mueller should not have unfettered power in his Russia probe and that the charges against Manafort did not arise from the investigation into Moscow's meddling or alleged meddling in the 2016 election. So here we go. The original, the original Reuters story got the name of the judge wrong. It isn't Amy Berman Jackson. It is T.S. Ellis. Now, you remember yesterday on this program, NBC breathlessly had breaking news that they had been told by two sources that the feds had wiretapped the phones of Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, and that they had intercepted calls from Cohen to the White House. And I warned you at that moment not to believe it. Grab audio soundbite number 13. This is exactly what I said when I saw this story, and it was about 2:45. It was near the end of the program yesterday. So now we have a story from NBC. A couple of anonymous sources. Oh, yeah, there was a wiretap of Cohen, and we nailed Cohen calling the White House. The wise thing to do, based on intelligence guided by experience, is to simply not believe most of what you hear for the first time in quote-unquote the news. There have been so many lies that have been leaked about Trump and Russia and collusion for 2 years now, and there has never been any evidence produced that confirms these leaks. Sad state of affairs when the gut reaction to any news story today has to be, I don't believe it. But that would be the wisest thing all of us could do, is simply reject. If it comes from the New York Times, CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, just reject it. And it turns out that a short time later, NBC had to issue a correction. They did not retract. They had to issue a correction. Do you know what happened before that, though? ABC ran a confirmation. ABC ran a story saying they had confirmed the NBC report. Well, the NBC report was all lies. It was bogus. There had not been wiretaps. The only thing the feds had was a log of the phone activity from Cohen's office. The same kind of log you'd get metadata, same kind of log you'd get if you requested it from a phone company. But there were no tapes, there were no wiretaps, and there weren't any transcripts of actual calls yet. There's ABC, shortly after the NBC story, running a story confirming ABC has confirmed that there were, in fact, wiretaps. Both of these networks had it 100% wrong. Well, let's say 75% wrong, because there were these call logs. But how does ABC confirm something that didn't happen? How does ABC confirm what NBC reported when NBC is on the verge of correcting it? Now, back to the story out of Virginia. We're going to stick here with the CNN version, the Reuters story. Reuters is now corrected. It is not Judge Amy Berman Jackson. It's Judge T.S. Ellis. And Ellis is appointed by Ronald Reagan. He repeated his suspicion that the Manafort prosecutors, the Mueller prosecutors here, really don't care about Manafort at all. They don't care about his bank fraud. You don't really care about Mr. Manafort's bank fraud. It seems like the judge lost his temper a couple of times. He said that prosecutors were interested in Manafort because of his potential to provide material that would lead to Trump's prosecution or impeachment. That's what you're really interested in, said the judge. He repeated his suspicion several times in a court hearing that lasted an hour. At one point, the judge posed a hypothetical question, speaking as if he were the prosecutor, about why Mueller's office referred a criminal investigation about Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, to New York authorities and kept the Manafort case in Virginia. Were they not interested in it to further our core effort to get Trump? Ellis said, mimicking a prosecutor. We haven't seen anything like this at any point during this case. This is exactly what everybody has been waiting for Jeff Sessions to do. Quite frankly, everybody's been waiting for Jeff Sessions to stand up and proclaim that much of this Mueller investigation is way out of bounds. I know you're saying, but he can't rush. He recused himself. Only from the Russia side of this. There's any number of things that Sessions could do to rein this in. Manafort, Rod Rosenstein will not even release the letter, despite congressional committees demanding it. The letter that he sent Mueller to kick this all off, that is the people's business, but Rosenstein will not release it. This is so out of control. This is so audacious. I mean, and it's so obvious to everybody what this is. This isn't even about the law. This isn't even about justice. This is not about trying to find people who broke the law and hold them accountable. This is nothing more than a cut and dried, obvious to everybody, attempt to get rid of Donald Trump, to ruin Donald Trump and everybody that works with him, his businesses, and his family. To have a judge call them out on this, finally have one judge, one person in the American criminal judicial system to stand up and correctly identify what's going on and call these people out, essentially telling him, you don't care about Manafort, you couldn't care less. Manafort, there's even an allusion in one of these stories, and it made... I'm still tracking this down. This all happened right before the program. This could be a Twitter post. But there's apparently some people saying that the judge, so all you want to do is flip Manafort. That's all you want him for. You don't care about this bank fraud. You don't really care about any of this. Besides, what does it have to do with your original investigation? This all happened before the campaign. The judge is exactly right. News agencies are seething. CNN is seething. Reuters is seething over this. This is the kind of common sense, overall reaction that everybody has had since this began. We've never heard from inside the American judicial system. No, I have no idea what the impact of it's going to be, other than this judge obviously is not eager to preside over a proceeding that may send Manafort to jail because he doesn't think they really care about Manafort or what he did. And if you look at Mueller's history, there's no question this is true. Robert Mueller let 4 innocent people rot away in jail for years when he knew that they were not guilty. 2 of those 4 died in jail. And the reason supposedly that Mueller did not do the right thing, ostensibly, was to protect the identity of a confidential informant. But I think it's much more than that. I think Mueller doesn't. This guy, like so many people in Washington, is obsessed with his reputation. And he's been given a great one by the people there. Great integrity, great honor, all of these wonderful attributes, and I don't think this guy wants anything to happen that would have put a chink in his armor. So Don't admit that he was wrong. Don't admit that he had 4 guys in jail who didn't do it. It's going to come back and redound negatively. I've got the power to keep them there. I'll keep them there. But there's even more examples than that of Mueller and his overreach and his abuse of power, which is clearly what this is. This is such a great abuse of power. And you couple it with what the media is doing. And I'm telling you, folks, let me take a break here, but I'll come back with what I was originally going to start with. And that is some of the good economic news, some of the job news, some of the polling data, because the practical impact of that is that all of what these people are doing, remember, this started out as an effort to drive Trump's approval numbers down. They still need the American people. If we're going to impeach Trump, if they're going to get rid of Trump and they're going to try to portray Trump as an absolute rotten person, they need public opinion on their side. Now, these people are so consumed with so much hatred, they may, at the end of the day, not even care about that. But when it all started, their job is made much easier if they could drive Trump's numbers down to the 20s or 30s like they did Nixon. By the time it came time to send Baker up to Nixon and say, you've lost your support in Congress, Mr. President, Nixon had to resign because his public opinion numbers were way, way down, his approval numbers. But Trump's numbers are rising. Trump's personal and approval, job approval numbers are rising in the midst of all this. Back in just a second. Don't go away. Welcome back. The reason all this is happening in this Virginia courtroom is that Manafort's trying to get the case against him thrown out. And that's why the hearing took place today. And while the judge made his fiery comments and challenged Mueller's motivations and challenged Mueller's actions in the case, he did not issue a ruling yet on the Manafort motion to throw the case out. And the judge indicated he may yet conclude that Mueller's initial jurisdiction when he was appointed last May was effectively expanded to cover the case that he brought against Manafort in Virginia in February. Trial in the case set for July 10th. Manafort wants it thrown out. The judge today unloaded on the prosecutors, but did not make a ruling and left open the possibility that he's going to go ahead and let the trial go forth, that maybe Mueller's jurisdiction did properly expand to include Virginia and New York and wherever Mueller wants to go. So, by the way, Manafort's motion to have the case thrown out's weeks old. There's nothing new about that. And the moment Manafort filed the motion, his lawyers, everybody's saying, fat chance, they're never going to throw. That doesn't happen. They never just throw cases out on whatever basis. And that's probably true. The judge probably is not going to throw the case out, despite his comments today. So, tough to speculate what this was all about. It may just be a ticked-off judge who wanted to get his thoughts about this on the record, but that's as far as it's going to go. He may not do anything to stop the prosecution of Manafort. Just wanted to get the stuff on the record. Is, again, a Reagan-appointed judge, and I believe he's African-American. T.S. Ellis. Speaking of African-Americans, they are loading up on Kanye West and attempting to deny him his platform now. In Detroit, the leading hip-hop radio station has decided to ban Kanye music. They're not going to play it anymore. And it's all based on the fact that Kanye doesn't know what he's talking about when he talks about slavery being a choice. What Kanye West said about that is actually right on the money and brilliant. It's way above any of these people's ability to understand it. No, you heard me right. The judge in the Manafort case targeting Mueller's team and said they're really just trying to get Trump. But he did not issue a ruling on throwing the Manafort case out. So right now, all we have is the judge pointing fingers. The judge was absolutely right on the money. CNN did a big report on it and then dropped it. The rest of the drive-by started seething with rage, and then they dropped it, and now they've all gone back to the Weather Channel. Stormy, 24/7. That's all they are. Now, during the break, I checked the email. I always do. Rush, why do you think personal approval numbers, presidential approval numbers matter here? If these people want to get rid of Trump, they're going to get rid of him. Well, no, it's not. It's not that simple because the getting rid of Trump is going to be impeachment. In fact, folks, the way to look at Mueller, if you really want to know it, Mueller is already acting as the Democrats' impeachment lawyer. They are making the case. That's what's going on right now. That's why it's not going away. I'm not saying there's a formal arrangement made between the Democrats and Mueller. I'm just saying that this is what is going to transpire. If the Democrats win the House, Mueller's investigation is going to be imported, if you will, and it'll become the basis for the impeachment proceedings. That's what the Democrats are hoping and planning. And Mueller may or may not be in on it. What Rich Lowry has a great piece about this in National Review today. Rich is coming to the conclusion this is so far out of bounds now. This is so obviously not about what it's supposed to be about that you can't ignore it anymore. You can't miss it. You have to see honestly what is happening here, and it is way beyond the bounds of the United States Department of Justice. This is just it's out of control. It has no basis. In fact, the energy, the propulsion of this whole thing is nothing but pure, bitter, angry politics designed to overthrow or reverse the outcome of an election. But the reason why public opinion matters is because impeachment is a political matter. It's not legal. Remember, Bill Clinton was impeached. That doesn't mean anything. You still have to get a conviction. For those of you who are low information voters or millennials and don't know how all this works, it's very simple. The House of Representatives draws up articles of impeachment, the charges, and then they appoint managers to handle every individual charge. So you have one member of the House that'd be, in the Clinton case, I think there were 12 House managers. And they present the case to the Senate. The Senate's a jury. Lindsey Graham was a House manager. Lindsey Graham at one time was as conservative as you and I are. But then he became a House manager, and the whole impeachment thing blew up because the Senate was not interested in it at all. And the House effort to impeach Clinton blew up. And the reason it blew up is that Bill Clinton's approval numbers remained 55 to 60 points. And I remember all during that period of time wondering how in the hell is this possible? And now I look back on it and I think I know exactly how it's possible. The American people didn't want any part of it back then. Even if Clinton had lied under oath, and even if Clinton had been bonging a little intern there in the Oval Office, the economy was great. The economy was flourishing. Everything was okay. They didn't want to get rid of Clinton. They weren't emotionally tied to the guy. They just didn't want things upset. And we have building similar circumstances here, only better. But this impeachment failed because Clinton's approval numbers were always around 55 to 60. There was no way the Senate was going to throw him out of office. That's why all of this matters, and that's why the original effort here, even before Mueller was hired, the original effort here was to drive Trump's approval numbers down to the 20s. That's how they were going to get rid of him in the first 6 months. When his approval numbers get to the 20s, he's got no defenders on Capitol Hill. Not that he has any now, but you understand the point. With no defenders on Capitol Hill, there is no way he's going to survive impeachment. And so to avoid that, they'll go up there and they'll say, Mr. President, you have no support left. This is what they did to Nixon. And Nixon resigned rather than go through the whole impeachment process because Nixon said he wanted to spare the country the trauma of all of that. Now, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near this with Trump because I don't think the Democrats are going to win the House. I think the Democrats and the media are in the process of losing it right now, if they ever had it won. I don't believe this blue wave was ever real. It was always the result of phony polling data, and it was the generic ballot. So how can it be? Let me create a scenario for you. Last December, the first generic ballot, Republican versus Democrat, what's your preference? The Democrats won that 15 percentage points. That's when the blue wave talk started. The media and the Democrats began to feel exactly like they felt on election night in 2016. They've got a landslide coming. All they have to do is wait for it. Now, since that time in January, December, when when the Republicans were at a minus 15% deficit, the generic ballot, look at the news that has happened since. What has it been? All Trump all the time. All Trump creep all the time. All Trump criminal all the time. All Trump reprobate all the time. All Trump unqualified all the time. It has been never ending from the moment that it preceded it, too. My point is that in a barrage, an inundation, a tsunami of nothing but negative Trump stories, the Republicans have begun to close the ballot in the generic ballot to the point now where the Democrats' lead is in the margin of error. So how can it be that all of this negative coverage on Trump, Stormy Daniels, pick your pick, whatever it is, it changes every week, you know. There's a new hook every week. There's a new crisis every week. There's a new, we got him, this is it, every week. So how can it be with all of this negative coverage? I mean, it's nothing but negative. There isn't a shred of positive coverage of Donald Trump, no matter where you go in the mainstream media. How in the world can Republicans be gaining ground in the generic ballot? Well, one of two things. Either they were never down 15 points, or they were, and the Democrats are losing ground. And a combination of Republicans gaining ground. I think it's the latter. I think the Democrats, I think the media are actually inflicting great harm on the Democrats. In fact, there are more and more Democrats. I've got stories today. Adam Schiff, pencil neck, he's out. He's warning Democrats, please do not talk about impeachment in your upcoming campaign. Please do not mention it. It's a negative. People don't want to hear it. If it were a positive, if the people in Democrat states and districts wanted Trump impeached, and that's how you would win an election, that's what they would be talking about. Their polling data must show that when it comes to impeachment, nobody wants any part of it. It's not a winning issue, let me put it that way. Because I can damn well guarantee you that if it were, that's all they'd be talking about. But you've got Pelosi, you've got Schiff, you've got any number of them trying to tell Democrat candidates, shut up, do not talk about impeachment, do not talk about getting rid of Trump, do not talk about it. Why? Because it's a negative. But the media can't stop talking about it. The media can't stop talking about anything negative with Trump. They don't have to just focus on impeachment. All they have to do is do their jobs every day, and they're beginning to irritate more and more and more people. In the midst of all this, the media told us for the last 2 months that the iPhone 10 was a flop, that Apple's stock price was going to plunge, that Apple's big days were over and behind them. The media told us that Cohen's phones had been tapped and his calls to the White House had been overheard by federal prosecutors. The media said that Trump's tax cuts would lead to catastrophe. Trump's tax cuts wouldn't help anybody. Well, the iPhone 10 sold record amounts of new phones. Apple sold an increased number of phones in the most recent quarter. And Warren Buffett just purchased 75 million shares of Apple, spending $200 and some odd million to do it. None of what was forecast about Apple came true at all. None of it was true. And now we find out that Cohen's phones were not tapped. Trump's tax cuts are working out for people so well that his approval number is now up to 51%. The unemployment number is down to 3.9%. U.S. job growth has rebounded with that unemployment rate at 3.9%. Manufacturing jobs are increasing. Let me find the exact number on that. Black Hispanic unemployment rates hit record lows in April, and manufacturing jobs are up 24,000 in April for a total of 304,000 since Trump took office. So on this side of the ledger, We have actual improving circumstances for people and their lives. There are jobs aplenty. We haven't been in the 3% unemployment category in I don't know how long. 4% is considered pretty much full employment statistically. And there's something else that's happening that's also going to redound to Trump's benefit, and that is a new high or a rebirth of illegal immigrants succeeding in crossing the border has been reported. Trump has done everything he can to stop that. He's not getting any help. And with every news report that more and more illegals are crossing and more from the caravan are being granted asylum, that's only going to help Trump. It isn't going to hurt him. There isn't a soul out there that voted for Trump who does not think Trump is trying, does not think Trump is working hard to fix that. They know Trump's not getting any assistance on it. So where people live, folks, where they live, where they go to work, where they spend time with their families, things are okay and improving. In the America reported on by the American media, it's a bunch of garbage people don't want any part of. They're tired of hearing about it. They don't believe it. They don't want to be immersed in it anymore. And to the extent that they are, they don't believe it. They're rejecting it. They're not driving Trump's approval numbers down. Trump's approval numbers are skyrocketing. Same people told us Hillary Clinton was going to win in a landslide. Same people told us that high unemployment and a very low gross domestic product was the new normal, and that Obama and the Democrats were perfectly positioned to manage the decline. Same people told us the Iran deal was fabulous. Same people told us that Donald Trump would start a nuclear war with North Korea because he was an ignorant, reckless cowboy. Same people told us it was never going to snow in New York, and they did. Donald Trump's only closer to a solution in North Korea than any American president ever has been. No American president in our lifetimes presided over unemployment at 3.9%. No American president has brought a manufacturing sector back from the dead like Donald Trump has presided over. And his numbers are at 51% despite a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week mauling by practically the totality of the American media. I don't think it's hard to conclude that what they're trying with Trump is not working in the court of public opinion. And in the process, the media continue to make abject fools of themselves. And it is obvious. It is obvious that they're crazed. It's obvious that they're unhinged. It is obvious they are deluded. And it's furthermore obvious that they hate. And hate is not compelling. Well, it's compelling, but it's not infectious. It's not how you build support for whatever it is you want to achieve. Judge Ellis gave the Mueller prosecutors 2 weeks to hand over the unredacted scope memo, which is the memo that explains the authority, grants the authority to the special counsel for the investigation. The judge summed up the special counsel's office as, "We said this was what the investigation was about, but we are not bound by it. We were lying." He referenced, "Come on, man," to the prosecutors after they made their pitch for keeping the case. "Come on, man." The judge gave the government 2 weeks to hand over the unredacted scope memo or provide an explanation why not, after prosecutors were reluctant to do so, claiming it has material that doesn't pertain to Manafort. The judge said, "I will be the judge of that, not you." So it was clearly contentious But the judge didn't throw the case out. The judge didn't rule. The judge got it off his chest. The judge told the prosecutors what he thought they were doing. They're just trying to get Trump, and that's it. The judge told them that, as far as he can tell, this Manafort case doesn't have anything to do with their original charter. It's why he wants to see the scope memo. Mueller's team says its authorities are laid out in documents, including the August 2017 scope memo, and that some powers are secret because they involve ongoing investigations and national security matters that cannot be publicly disclosed. Rosenstein saying the same thing, why he will not give his letter that charged Mueller with the investigation because of national security matters and ongoing investigations. The judge did not seem persuaded with this explanation for why they won't give him the source or scope memo on this. And some drive-by news analysts are saying this is not a good day for Mueller. This is not the kind of treatment Mueller is used to. Judges don't say these things lightly. That's Michael Zeldin on CNN moments ago. So we're going to keep tracking this, see what it means, if anything. Back in a moment. Now, folks, the judge asking for the scope memo is a big, big deal. Remember, there was no crime that was specified at the beginning of this. And these prosecutors know that there's no crime. The scope memo is going to show that they have freedom, liberty to go anywhere they want to go. And if that's ever exposed, that's why Rosenstein will not release it. If that's ever exposed, a big dent in all of this to the prosecutors happens. And welcome back, El Rushbo, the EIB network. It is Friday. Let's just keep things rolling.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Yeah, I need to make a correction. Judge T.S. Ellis is not African American. In fact, he looks like Paul Giamatti. The reason that I made the mistake, thinking he's African American, is that he presided over the case of Congressman William Jefferson, Democrat, Louisiana, who was found stuffing $90,000 of cash into his freezer during Hurricane Katrina. And it is William Jefferson's picture that appears in stories, and he's incorrectly identified as the judge. So I imagine a lot of people are making this mistake today. In a lot of places, Judge Elliott is misidentified with photos of Congressman William Jefferson, Democrat, Louisiana. Ellis was the judge in Jefferson's case. And they have a picture of... I thought when I saw this, I said, it looks like William Jefferson. Well, it looked like somebody I knew. I didn't immediately think William Jefferson. Anyway, the judge is not African American. I wanted to make that correction. And I was gonna have already gone to the phones by now, but then this judge thing happened, and I still have to close the loop on this. This story happened literally minutes before the program began. And once the program begins, I have 2 or 3 minute little periods of time to start putting things together and learn things sufficiently to pass them on to you. So here is, after an hour of a bunch of 2 or 3 minute little segments of learning things, here is what we have learned. The Manafort lawyers made a motion some weeks ago to have his case thrown out on the basis that his case has nothing to do with Russian collusion and the special counsel should not even have jurisdiction over it because it has nothing to do with what the original purpose of Mueller's investigation is. The hearing on that was today. And the judge, T.S. Ellis, who is not African American, had some biting comments for the Mueller prosecutor team. He essentially said, it looks to me like all you're really using Manafort here is a way to get Donald Trump. This does seem to me to appear outside your jurisdiction. What you're accusing Manafort of doing happened way before the campaign or Trump's election. And the Mueller prosecutors objected, and whatever their objections were, the judge said, "Come on, man, don't try to put this on me." And he has demanded what is called the scope memo. He has demanded that Mueller's prosecutors turn over to him whatever it was Mueller was given by the Department of Justice that got this whole investigation going. Now, House Republicans on various committees are seeking the same thing from the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who's refusing to turn it over, despite numerous requests from the elected representatives of the people, members of the United States House of Representatives. And I think they've even subpoenaed this memo. Now, here's why nobody wants to give this up. The Mueller prosecutors do not want this judge to see it, and Rosenstein doesn't want Congress to see it because it probably isn't even a letter. This takes us back to what got this all started. Remember that Department of Justice regulations stipulate that when a special counsel is named and hired, that he be given a specific crime to investigate. And therefore, or then, if during the investigation of that stated crime, he finds evidence of other crimes, the special counsel must go back to whoever appointed him. In this case, it would be Rosenstein, since Sessions recused himself, to seek permission to expand the investigation to these other areas discovered during the course of the investigation. Well, there was no crime specified. Robert Mueller was not given any limits on his investigation. Right off the bat, Department of Justice regulations were violated by the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein by not specifying a crime. And we have been saying from the beginning that it's a big problem that there was no crime starting this whole thing. You have to have a crime first. Then you assign the prosecutor. You do not assign the prosecutor first and tell him he has unlimited authority to go find a crime. And this is what I believe has offended Judge Ellis, because he has figured this out, that these people are running around with no limits on them, and they can look anywhere, anytime, and they can invent crimes if they want. They can invent process crimes. They can go look anywhere to find a crime, which is what they've done in Manafort's case. The judge is saying, wait a minute, this guy's got nothing to do with Russian collusion. This guy's got nothing to do with the Trump campaign that you're investigating. I want to see the memo granting you the authority to do all this. They don't want the judge to see the memo. So the judge said, well, you give it to me, and maybe I'll keep it under seal. And maybe I won't share it with Manafort's lawyers right off the bat. So when the judge presses them on this, they say, well, it turns out our investigation is really not limited to collusion with Russia. In fact, our investigation doesn't have any limits at all. That's what's going to be learned if they do furnish the scope memo. The judge realizes that all the stuff they have on Manafort predates collusion with Russia. And the Justice Department declined to prosecute any of it until Mueller came along. The Justice Department looked into this Manafort stuff a couple times, saw nothing there, let it go. Mueller comes along, and all of a sudden, Mr. Integrity, Mr. Unimpeachable Reputation, indicts Manafort, and the judge even specified today, in kind of a joking manner, well, you're just setting this guy up to flip on the president, right? It was a stinging rebuke. It was the kind of rebuke we should have seen countless times in the last year from people in the Department of Justice. In fact, Rosenstein ought to be asking Mueller what he's doing. Rosenstein ought to be reining this in. Sessions ought to be reining in the areas of it he can that he hasn't recused himself from. But Mueller has been out there off the leash with no controls over anything he's doing, with the media urging him on and accomplishing everything he's doing, praising everything he's doing, encouraging him to keep going. No limits whatsoever. But this judge knows that the Justice Department had the goods on Manafort long before Mueller came along, and they chose not to prosecute. Now Mueller wants to prosecute it on the authority of a collusion with Russia investigation, even though it has nothing to do with collusion with Russia. It is nuts. All of this is nuts. All of this is blindingly, offensively nuts. It doesn't make any sense if the or anything. It makes total sense if there is a government effort, deep state effort to get rid of a duly elected president, then all of this makes perfect sense. But if the rule of law still matters, I find it, frankly, it's great that this judge has piped up, but where have been others in the DOJ? Is everybody in the DOJ aligned with the lawlessness of this? Is everybody in the DOJ in on this fix? That's why people keep talking about the deep state. Where are the limits? How can you have a special counsel exist in such violation of DOJ regulations and nobody speak up about it? Well, no, I know we have, but we're not in the Department of Justice. We're not in the government. We're not in positions here. We're speaking up like this judge did. This judge has authority over these prosecutors. But I'll tell you this, too. Like I said yesterday, you know what's really offensive about this to me? And it's hard to pick one thing. If you just landed here from another planet, from Mars or whatever, and you start watching it for 2 days, you know what you're going to think? You're going to think this country elects a president, but there's a guy over here that is constantly investigating him and determining whether or not he's fit to be president every day, and that the media supports that guy, and that guy actually who has the power in this country, not the president. That's what you would have to conclude. And that's exactly the way Mueller and his team, Comey and the rest of these people want it. Well, none of this is in the Constitution, folks. None of this is. All of this is taking place outside the Constitution. And the fact that only one judge has decided to speak up and actually call this out for what it is, yeah, it's a great thing it happened. But it's worrisome that it's just one. And since it's just one, I guarantee you back at the DOJ, Rosenstein, Mueller, and these people are plotting ways that they can get around this judge. They can't let this stand. They're going to have to do something to deal with this. And I, for one, am going to be curious to see what that is. In the meantime, we'll be back. Your phone calls are next. Molly Hemingway at the Federalist adds to the judge story, Judge Ellis. She tweeted that the judge said, "We don't want anyone in this country with unfettered power. It's unlikely," he's saying this to the prosecutors, Mueller's prosecutors, "it's unlikely you're going to persuade me the special prosecutor has power to do anything he or she wants. The American people feel pretty strongly no one has unfettered power." Bingo. That's the exact way to describe this. Mueller and his people are running around like they have ultimate authority and ultimate power. They can determine the fitness of the president, the duly elected president. That's damn what they're doing. They are determining the fitness of the president based on their own inside the Beltway establishment rules. That's exactly what's happening. And this is exactly what the American people are slowly rising up and refusing to accept, because it's becoming patently obvious that's all this is. Look, if I don't stop talking about this, I'm going to not get any phone calls in, and I've got to get phone calls in. It's Open Line Friday. So here we go to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Rachel, great to have you with us. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Rush?
Fine, thank you.
So I don't understand why people are so shocked that the president is paying the $130,000 back to his lawyer for services rendered. I mean, how do you not understand paying your bills?
Well, now on this one, the attempt is being made to suggest that Donald Trump made an illegal campaign contribution here. And for this crime, Rachel, there is a 5 years in jail sentence. It is a major felony in federal election law. Now, wait a second. Barack Obama was found to have committed election fraud 20 times this amount by soliciting anonymous donations of people from $250 or less. And they looked into it and they said, well, you know, he's our first African-American president. We can't charge him with anything. So they looked the other way. Dinesh D'Souza was found to have played loose with some kind of federal campaign law involving $20,000, and he had a year's worth of home arrest. Home detention, something like that. So it's purely arbitrary as to how these things are applied. This investigation is taking place under the auspices of the Federal Election Commission when it gets there. Right now, this is an SDNY New York investigation of Michael Cohen, the lawyer. And it is $100,000 to $130,000. And all of this is about an attempt to make it look like Trump knew exactly what was going on, that he was helping his lawyer pay off somebody who could damage his campaign. And this exceeds donor limits. Maximum limits $3,200. This is $130,000. Do not doubt me when I tell you that the prison sentence aspect, max prison time for this felony is 5 years. And if you don't think that the drive-by media is pushing for this, then you don't know the drive-by media. Now, today, the president met with the press twice. He's flown to the NRA convention, so he met with the press on the White House lawn, then again at the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews. And on the conference he had with the press on the White House lawn, the media wants to know, what about Rudy? Did Rudy screw things up? Did Rudy throw you over the bus? Does Rudy even know what he's doing anymore? Why you have Rudy working for you? This guy made a boneheaded play. Rudy did a stupid thing. Rudy has really made it even worse for you. Why do you have Rudy around? Blah, 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 blah.
Rudy is a great guy, but he just started a day ago. But he really has his heart into it. He's working hard. He's learning the subject matter. And he's going to be issuing a statement, too. But he is a great guy. Rudy knows it's a witch hunt. He started yesterday. He'll get his facts straight. We're going to give a full list, and people know. And virtually everything said has been said incorrectly, and it's been said wrong, or it's been covered wrong by the press. Just like NBC and ABC yesterday covered the story wrong. It's actually very simple. It's actually very simple. But there has been a lot of misinformation, really. People wanting to say, and I say, you know what? Learn before you speak. It's a lot easier.
And don't worry about Rudy. He'll get his facts straight. You gotta love this. I know. You'd be telling me I'd be pulling my hair out of Bill Clinton or Obama and said, he'll get his facts straight. You just gotta get his. When you know Trump, he'll get his facts straight. Don't worry about Rudy. Rudy will figure it out. He'll get it. He's just one day on the job. He's a great guy. Come on, you think Rudy would throw me into the bus? You're crazy. Look at NBC, ABC. They lied. They know they lied. You got to tell the truth. Rudy's trying. Rudy will get it right. Next question. And that means next call. Next call, Jennifer, Jacksonville, Florida. Great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Hi, Rush. Happy Friday.
Same to you. Thank you.
My question is this. If Stormy Daniels did indeed receive and was paid the $130,000 of hush money, clearly she has not upheld her part of the agreement. Could Trump countersue her and get that money back?
I think that's what's gone on here. Hasn't there been an attempt to made to punish her for violating the NDA, threats of countersuits or some such thing? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not know that. I apologize. I think he should give it to the RNC when he gets it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about this.
Okay.
Do you care?
About what part?
Any of it. Do you care that Trump and Stormy might have met one night on a stormy night 10 years ago?
Nope.
Do you care? Do you care that the lawyer wanted to pay Stormy $130,000 to keep her oral cavity shut?
Not at all. Not at all.
None of this bothers you.
Other than it's distracting.
No, I said oral cavity. Trump did not ask her to keep other cavities shut, just the oral cavity. I mean, this was not punitive. Just wanted her to keep her mouth shut.
Yeah, and she couldn't do it.
Well, she's a porn star. What do you expect? She couldn't do it. No, my point is, does it bother? The media is acting like this may be one of the greatest criminal violations in the history of the presidency.
It's terrible in that it's distracting our president from so much more important things. And after that, it really doesn't matter.
Okay, look, the reason I'm asking this, and I know we're not producing anything scientific here. I can't talk to enough people. My point is, the media oversells every one of these new discoveries they glom onto. Because every one of these new discoveries is the silver bullet, right? This is it. This is the smoking gun. And how many of these have there been in the last 2 years? So they get revved up and they get wound up. And CNN may have offered already more coverage on this than the missing Malaysian airliner. But if their viewers don't care, if the American people don't care, if they don't even care enough to get into it deeply enough to learn the specifics of what happened, if all they see is what looks like an unfair pursuit of somebody that's not harming them, Trump is not hurting anybody, it's going to backfire. That's right, a man, a legend, a way of life. It's not a good day for leftists in court. Charlie Rose has been sued by 3 more CBS staffers. This is all about the sexual harassment charges. 27 new women came forward yesterday in this. And the judge, of course, in the Manafort case, opening up on the Mueller prosecutors. Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire. Red wave? Polls show Republicans could pick up 9 Senate seats. What? Wait, what? What about the blue wave? The blue wave is the Republicans are going to lose in the House, the Democrats going to take the House, the Democrats going to do impeachment, they're going to get rid of Trump. Wait a minute, what is this? According to new Morning Consult polls, Democrats are in serious trouble in Senate races across the country. Republicans have taken serious leads in West Virginia, where the incumbent Democrat Joe Manchin trails by 14, in North Dakota, where incumbent Democrat Heidi Heitkamp trails by 8. In Indiana, incumbent Democrat Joe Donnelly trails by 5. Claire McCaskill in Missouri trails by 5. And there is polling data out of Missouri that essentially says Missourians think she's old news. It's time for a change. In fact, in San Francisco, a local CBS affiliate, the TV station, made mention of the fact that Nancy Pelosi is less popular than, I think it was Trump. Is it Trump? No, that's not Trump. I forget who. But the point is that Pelosi is not even ruling the roost in her own home district in San Francisco. And yet we hear about this blue wave that's coming. And the only evidence of that is, of course, polling data from back in December and January. In Montana, John Tester trails by 5. By the way, there's news on that. There's the position for Mike Pence. Name is Pena. Forget her first name. What is her name? Let's find it over here. First name is Jennifer Pena. She's apparently the one that dropped the dime on Ronnie Jackson. And she did it by going directly to the Senate, which means John Tester. So she goes over there and she tells Tester all this horrible stuff about Ronnie Jackson. Tester runs with it, of course. It turns out to have been untrue. Pence's official doctor dropped the dime on Trump's. Well, she has resigned. Gee whiz, this is just veteran or VP position who targeted Ronnie Jackson resigns. And now the Morning Consult poll. Republicans could pick up 9 Senate seats. Now, I have to weigh in on this. Forget the blue wave stuff. Let's go back to shortly after the 2016 election, shortly after Trump won, when Washington was turned upside down. Nobody could believe what just happened. And even at that early stage, people began looking at the midterms, House and Senate. And back then, it was a foregone conclusion. Do you remember James Carville running around talking about how the Democrats had never had less power since the 1920s, that the Democrats were now in the wilderness, that there was no way the Democrats were ever going to be able to come back? Carville was so down in the dumps when he looked up, he saw the gutter. And back then, it was the story was how the Democrats had so many seats to defend in 2018. Something like, I forget the exact number, 18 to 20 Democrats were up for re-election, and many of them in states where Trump had done very well. And so the early conventional wisdom was that the Democrats were headed for even more trouble. The Republicans only have to defend 9 seats in the Senate in the midterms. The Democrats 18 or 20, something like that. Well, this story from Morning Consult is doing nothing more than confirming what was conventional wisdom after the election. It shows that Republicans could pick up 9 seats, which is about what people were saying in December of 2016, January of 2017. So what has happened in the ensuing year and a half hasn't changed this at all. We just think it has. We think that there's a big blue wave. We think the Democrats are going to sweep everything because Trump is hated. Well, Trump isn't hated. People in America were living and working where Trump is having an impact are doing quite well. Even Apple announced one of the largest share buybacks in American corporate history, and they're going to use the money from the Trump tax cut to do it. Well, what a share buyback is simply giving money to shareholders. They are returning money to shareholders. The people who own Apple stock are making out like bandits. All because of Trump's tax cuts. People are experiencing more disposable income. They have bonuses. As such, the unemployment number, 3.9%. Trump's approval number, 51%. Manufacturing jobs are way up. None of this makes any sense if you measure it against what you see in the drive-by media every day. Trump ought to be hated and despised. If you pay attention to media and you believe what you see there, well, you would think Trump's on the verge of being thrown out of office tomorrow. That's how hated he is. That's how opposed he is. That's how much people regret voting for him. And yet the reality is the Democrats, as of now, and you know what I think about these early polls, but we're going to use it since they do. Democrats are losing in 9 seats in the Senate where Republicans could pick up gains. Republicans gain 9 seats. Now, we don't know how many they're going to lose, but they've got far fewer to defend. The point is, there isn't any blue wave happening here. And the blue wave that was said to happen in the House, it looks like, if it ever was real, that it is evaporating at the same time. There's this story from Matthew Continetti at the Free Beacon. The media is killing the Democrat Party. The Democrat message has been reduced to Russia and Stormy Daniels. The Democrats have not had a message since the election. They didn't have a message during the election. Their message during the election was that Trump is unfit and that Hillary is the greatest candidate for president there's ever been, or that Hillary is entitled, or that Hillary is owed, or Hillary is due. The Democrats haven't had a message. Obama's economic message was, hey, the best days are behind us. Get used to the decline. America has no exceptionalism about it. America never was that great. That was the American message during Obama. Is it any wonder the Democrats were sent packing? What has happened to rebound for the Democrats? What's happened to make them look good to people? What's happened in the last year and a half to make people think the Democrats are where we would rather have leading the country. It doesn't make any sense. It makes literal no sense at all, yet the narratives and the forecasts of the drive-by media are just that the American people regret. The American people have buyer's remorse. The American people desperately want the Democrats back. Hillary or Bernie, it doesn't matter. Elizabeth Warren, but I want the Democrats back. Well, there's no evidence of that. It's one gigantic illusion, one gigantic lie after lie after lie. Indirect and direct. Back to the phones. Greg, Atlanta. Great to have you, sir. Hi.
Hi, Rush. Thanks for taking the call. You were talking last hour about how Lindsey Graham and company 20 years ago or more pursued the impeachment of President Clinton, and yet the Senate wasn't invested, the American people weren't invested, as evidenced by President Clinton's approval rating, and it was ultimately proven in the 98 midterms when the Republicans lost enough seats sufficient that Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich felt compelled to resign at that point. I started to get excited when you were talking about that because it sounds like we're looking at the exact same kind of circumstances possibly shaping up for the midterm this year, where the global left is going after Trump, and yet his popularity is increasing. Is it possible that we could really see be surprised, pleasantly surprised this November?
Well, the way to answer that is that I would not be surprised if we're surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I will not be, but some people will be, and I won't be surprised if they are. Look, don't forget this. Latest addition to the Democrats begging candidates to stop talking about impeachment is no less than pencil neck. Adam Schiff, a Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, is out desperately today begging Democrats to shut up about impeachment. Now ask yourself, he's not alone. Pelosi has said the same thing. And they've both at Maxine Waters, would you please stop talking about it? Why? I mean, look, if the country hates Trump, and if the country realizes it made a mistake in electing Trump, and if they wish they could do it over again, and if they've got buyer's remorse, and if Trump is despised and hated, as you would think by listening and watching the media, then why in the world would talking about getting rid of him hurt? Why don't they want this front and center? If they have all of a sudden become so popular with the American people, if the Democrats are all of a sudden loved and adored and respected and desired again after a year and a half of this guy, then why aren't the Democrats pushing that? Well, the answer is obvious. Schiff and Pelosi and the rest of these people know full well that basing a campaign around the premise of getting rid of a duly elected president because they don't like him is a death wish. It doesn't mean they're not going to do it if they win. It just means they know they won't win if that is the reason they tell people to vote for them. And if that won't work in getting votes, then what does it ultimately actually mean? It means there isn't public sentiment for getting rid of Trump. And it means the media, despite 90% of their coverage on Trump every day being totally negative, means the media has failed. And the Democrats have failed to drive his approval numbers down to the 20s or 30s, which would make impeachment proceedings work, succeed, and therefore be something they could use in the campaign agenda. But they haven't been able to do that. And now they've set themselves up to run against the greatest employment in 18, 20 years, to run against this massive increase in manufacturing jobs, to run against a very popular and gaining popularity every week tax cut. Look at what they're running against, and then turn on the media again and tell me what you see of the Democrat agenda. What is there in the media every day that would inspire anybody or motivate anybody to vote for the Democrats? The answer is nothing except hatred for Donald Trump. Sorry, that's not going to do it. But they know it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to rein people in on all this impeachment chatter. By the way, as far as the midterms are concerned, let's remember something else. Donald Trump has not even begun to campaign yet. Maybe the appearance in Washington Township, Michigan, you could say was the beginning of a campaign. He dumped all over Debbie Stabenow. He said, look, you keep putting these people back into office. You keep complaining about what they do. It's time to stop putting them in office. But the point is, Trump hasn't even started a campaign. When Trump starts the campaign, when he goes to these states, when he goes to these districts and starts campaigning against these Democrats, they're not going to know what hit them. They're all living the illusion that Trump's hated and despised by everybody because they pay attention to their media, which misled them on Hillary winning the White House, don't forget. I'm telling you, the mainstream media does the Democrat Party more harm than anybody would ever acknowledge. The Democrat Party believes the tripe and the crap that they put out every day. They thought Hillary was going to win in a landslide. They think Trump is hated and despised now. While Trump hadn't even begun the campaign, the Democrats are. That's all the Democrats are doing. Everything they're doing is part of the campaign for the midterms. Getting rid of Trump, Mueller, Comey, they're all part of the Democrat campaign. Comey just came out and said the NRA uses fear to sell guns. James Comey has made it official. He's crossed over and he has now landed both feet inside the Democrat Party. And you know why? Because that's where he's going to sell books. He has written a book for the American left. He has sized it up and he's figured out that there's a lot of energy in the hate Trump crowd out there, and he's going to maximize it, and he's going to write a book, and he's going to sell the book to them, and then he's going to go out and say things to sell this book to let them know he's on their side. And coming along and jumping on the day before Trump's going to go to the NRA, Trump's there now, James Comey comes out and says that the NRA uses fear. Nope. The NRA doesn't do anything. The Democrat Party every now and again makes a move to try to take guns away from people, and more people join the NRA, and more people go out and buy guns. There's over 300 million guns in this country today. I don't know how many are not in the hands of Democrats, but I'll guarantee you they're outnumbered if it ever came to this. And one other thing, Michael Caputo. We played a number of sound bites from him yesterday. He's one of the people that has gone broke, having to defend himself in this asinine, offensive as it can be, so-called special counsel investigation into something that didn't happen, Trump colluding with Russia. And we played a bunch of his sound bites yesterday. We played the sound bite where his children's future is gone, and he needs to get a job that pays $125,000 to be able to start putting his life back together. And he's just a witness. He's not even a target. I failed to mention yesterday, we posted a segment on what I did with Caputo on the website yesterday, and we linked to a GoFundMe account that he's established, but I didn't mention it on the air yesterday, and I meant to, so I'm doing it now. Now, we've still got the Caputo section up at rushlimbaugh.com. And if you missed the show yesterday and missed that segment, you need to go to rushlimbaugh.com and read the segment on Caputo, because you'll see. It's excellent. But he's also got a GoFundMe page where he's seeking to try to recoup some of what he's been forced to lose, as many people have, by the way. Flynn, a whole bunch of others. Got to take a break. Back after this. Fastest 3 hours in media. Only one remaining. Don't go anywhere, folks, because it's going to be on fire. Fast-paced. You got to listen fast. Back here in just a moment. Hey, my old golfing buddy Rudy Giuliani is now clarifying his statements. Trump said he's getting his facts straight. It's going to eventually happen. And when Rudy gets his facts straight, look out. That's what Trump said. Perfect, total faith in Rudy getting his facts straight. And it looks like that phase has begun.
Live from the Southern Command in sunny South Florida, it's Open Line Friday.
Rudy is now saying that the references were not his understanding of Trump's knowledge, not Trump's, but rather his own. He was not speaking for Trump when he was doing the interviews on Fox on Wednesday night and Thursday. But here's the most important point that Rudy just made. Remember, because everybody's looking at this as a campaign finance violation. Rudy said that this $130,000 payment would have been made whether Trump was a candidate or not, which is important because that signifies that this was personal. And the way federal election law is structured, if a payment is made or if a donation is received, if there can be any personal explanation for it, then that is what triumphs or dominates. And so Rudy's saying, look, this payment to Cohen, it would have been made whether Trump was a candidate or not. There was an NDA out there, and Cohen had paid for it. He needed to be reimbursed. Rudy says Trump pays this guy a retainer. He pays this guy his monthly bills, and how Cohen uses the money is sometimes Trump's not going to be advised of every expenditure, which, a lot of people that don't have a lot of lawyers have trouble envisioning this. And people that don't have a lot of money have a lot of trouble envisioning people that don't keep track of every dollar that goes out and comes in. And $130,000 to somebody like Trump would be, well, I don't know, but let's put $130,000 to most people. They'd be interested in where every penny of it went or came from. But to multimillionaires and billionaires, it's not quite, there's a sense of proportion to all this. But the point is that Rudy's statement, this payment would have been made whether Trump was a candidate or not, is really all that needs to be said about this. Now, this is not going to shut any of this down. Believe me, the drive-bys, for whatever number of times this has happened, think they've got blood in the water here. And they're not going to give it up. And in the process, they're going to overplay it. They're going to overdo it. They're going to wear people out on it, which is already starting to happen. Hey, look, this is 2018. More people are familiar with paying off prostitutes than you would think. Certainly more people than back in 1980 or 2000. Come on, let's get real here. We're not dealing in a Victorian age. It's not Ozzie and Harriet out there anymore. People go to strip clubs all the time. Bada bing. Seen that? People go to all these kind of, it's not, let's face it, our culture is not what it once was, folks. We're not a bunch of pristine Victorians out there who need the vapors every time we hear people have had sex. Doesn't work that way anymore. But the drive-bys are trying to turn back the clock and act like, oh, this is so outrageous. It's so offensive. And these are the people trying to tell us that Bill Clinton didn't matter. At least Stormy got paid off. The Clinton campaign destroyed their women. The Clinton campaign did everything they could to destroy their women. At least Stormy got paid off. And now Stormy's getting all kinds of attention. Anyway, greetings. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, 800-282-2882, and the email address, rushbo@eibnet.us. I mentioned a column by Rich Lowry at National Review. Actually, his column ran at Politico. And it's very prescient. Rich posted this column before the judge in the Manafort case erupted today at Mueller prosecutors. If you've missed that, look, there's still so much to do. I don't want to go back and redo that segment. Go to rushlimbaugh.com if you've missed it. But the judge in the Manafort case really let the Mueller prosecutors have it today, called them out on what they're doing, and has demanded that they furnish him with a scope memo, which is the charter, if you will, that gives them guidance on what Mueller can do as special counsel. He's out there saying, I don't believe you have unfettered power. You don't have unfettered power with me, and I don't believe the American people believe anybody in this country should have unfettered power. This is all because Rosenstein did not specify a crime. So now Mueller thinks he can go anywhere and do anything. And this judge said, you're going to indict a guy, you want to try a guy here had nothing to do with your original pursuit, which is Russian collusion? Well, Lowry has written about this, and, you know, Rich joining this, shall we say, side of things here is significant. Now, Rich is not a never-Trumper, don't misunderstand. But even the whole development here, the direction this whole direction, so-called special counsel investigation is taking, is starting to offend even those who think the Justice Department is above criticism. We still have in this country a lot of people who think the DOJ is crystal clean and pure as the wind-driven snow. And if they're out there pursuing bad guys, then it must be bad guys. And that it's just unseemly. It's unseemly to accuse the DOJ of, say, witch hunts. It's unseemly. We just don't do that in polite America. I mean, I think it's Bill Kristol's out there saying, you don't criticize the DOJ. You don't say they're engaging in witch hunts. Nobody does that we respect. Well, except that that's exactly what's happening. And I want to read you just a couple of short takes from Rich's piece. He's entitled it, Rod Rosenstein Jumps the Shark. We now have an extensive obstruction investigation carried out by investigators who, as a material matter, have not been obstructed. It's kind of like Mark Stein said, okay, we got a investigation of collusion with Russians, but who are the Russians? Where are the Russians? We don't have any Russians in this case. Lowry's point is, who's being obstructed? Well, the answer to that from the special counsel side is Comey. And we know from Michael Caputo that Comey is Mueller's case on the obstruction side. So that would mean the case for obstruction is Trump firing Comey, which Trump can constitutionally do. So they're trying to criminalize the president carrying out his constitutional authorities. But judging by the leaked questions, the questions that Mueller wants to ask Trump, we have an extensive obstruction investigation carried out by investigators who have not been obstructed. There's been an intense focus on Trump's Oval Office discussion with Comey about going easy on Michael Flynn. But nobody went easy on Flynn. Flynn's going to go to jail for crying out. Who went easy on him? How could Trump have obstructed that? Flynn was found guilty of lying. He's going to go to jail if a miracle doesn't happen there. So where the hell was the obstruction of Comey or using Comey? Regardless, current Justice Department guidance, i.e. regulations, says the president cannot be indicted. It's not a law. It means in the manual of guidance, regulations by which the Department of Justice functions each and every day, they have decided as a matter of policy the president cannot be indicted. Now, if Mueller takes heed of that, he is limited to indicting underlings. And for what? For lying to the FBI? He's got no evidence anybody has done anything on the Trump campaign colluding with Russia. There's nothing. This means, folks, that Mueller, for all intents and purposes, is serving as the lead investigative counsel for a prospective House impeachment committee. It's an important position, just not one that should be housed within the executive branch. Should they win the House in the fall, Nancy Pelosi and her fellow leaders would be fully within their rights to create an impeachment committee and hire a bevy of investigators, and right there to hire is Robert Mueller. But he comes from the executive branch, you see. But the important point here is there's an obstruction case being brought by prosecutors who are not being obstructed. Nobody's standing in their way. Nobody's stopping them. Nobody's even trying to. Trump has furnished them 1.1 million documents, folks. He announced yesterday that he has given the special counsel over 1 million pages of documents. And they're running around claiming obstruction. So the way to look at Mueller right now is that he is the lead investigative lawyer for a prospective House impeachment committee. And yet, he's in the executive branch. This is jumping the shark. This is way, way out of proportion. Also, Kimberly Strassel is back today, and she is deeply concerned over why the House of Representatives is not working to get Rosenstein and others at the DOJ to turn over the requested materials that various House committees have requested. Here's a pull quote. 2 House sources confirm for me, this is Kimberly Strassel writing, 2 House sources confirm for me that the Justice Department was recently delivered first a classified House Intelligence Committee letter and then a subpoena demanding documents related to a new line of inquiry about the FBI's Trump investigation. The deadline for complying with the subpoena was yesterday afternoon. Justice Department flouted it. As the White House is undoubtedly monitoring any new congressional demands for information, it's likely that President Trump's tweet Wednesday ripping the department for not turning over documents was in part a reference to this latest demand. This week's events, including more flat-out subpoena defiance, put a luminous spotlight on Speaker Paul Ryan. The credibility of the House's oversight authority is at stake. Mr. Ryan's committee chairmen have done remarkable work of exposing FBI behavior. They deserve backup. The quickest way to get justice and FBI to comply with these legitimate requests is for Ryan to state strongly and publicly that he has zero qualms about proceeding down the road of contempt or impeachment if House demands are not met. This is the people's government. It is not the Justice Department's. This is the people's government. It's not Rosenstein's. This is the people's government. It isn't Mueller's or anybody working for him. It isn't Nancy Pelosi's. It isn't Hillary Clinton's. It is the people's government. Her basic point is the Speaker of the House, the leader of the Republicans, is not backing up his chairman, who are seeking legitimate information from Rosenstein and the Department of Justice that would explain just what Mueller is doing, who authorized whatever he is doing, and what is it that he was authorized to. This judge in Virginia in the Manafort case is demanding the same information, and the Department of Justice is doing everything they can to withhold it. And Strassel's point is that if the leader of the Republicans in the House would back his chairman and demand this stuff, that it would carry a lot of weight. Because something has to be done to tell the Department of Justice and the intelligence community, people like John Brennan and James Clapper, you do not run this government. It is a government of, by, and for the American people. And nobody elected any of you. The elected representatives of the people demand to see what the hell it is you're doing here. And they are right in demanding to see it. And you are wrong in withholding it. But if no such pressure is applied, now Mark Meadows who is one of these Republicans in the House demanding the information, is talking about impeaching Rosenstein. And Rosenstein is getting all defiant. You can't intimidate me. I'm not going to be intimidated. I am not going to sell the Justice Department down the river. I am not. So you got a real turf war here. You got the executive branch versus the legislative branch. But Rosenstein does not run the executive branch, and neither does Mueller, although I think they do. I think they both think they are running things to protect everybody from Trump. This is what's really going on. They're doing it with the 1,000% support of the Democrat Party and the media. And we're back to the same old thing. Where are McConnell and Ryan? I have to take a break. We'll get back to your calls when we return. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair, and about 20% of my voice as well today, folks. Been a long week. But we're headed back to the phones to New York City. John, great to have you. I'm glad you waited. How you doing, sir?
Okay. I'd like to speak about the pen register on Michael Cohen's phone.
Yes, sir. On his office and home and apartment and so forth, yeah.
All right. Let me explain about how a pen register works. It's the same. It is a wiretap. The only thing is the court order doesn't allow you to listen in. But you can listen in illegally. You can attach a listening device, a phone, and a recording device on the connection that the pen register is connected to and listen in.
So the pen register is actually more than metadata. It's more than just what the phone company would give you if you subpoenaed records of who called when for how long. You've actually got access to audio with a pen register?
You can just connect onto the pen register connection. That's a wiretap. They're tapping into that phone system.
But you would be in violation of the law, right, if you don't have a warrant to wiretap. But you
Correct. You would be in violation of law.
So that's what you're saying maybe going on.
Stop people from doing it.
Obviously not. You think it's happening here?
Yes, I do.
On what basis?
I think it happened because those people have no fear of oversight. They're crooked people. And I'm sure that someone in that office was listening to the phone calls and recording it.
This would be this is the U.S. Attorney's Southern District of New York now, where this is not Mueller. You think they're corrupt in there?
I don't care who it is. That can be done, and when people don't care about the law, they do illegal things.
Well, yeah, I mean that's true.
I believe that they would listen in. I don't care what district it is, who it is.
But
the reason I say it is because it can be done, and when something can be done, it's usually done.
Well, I must say I didn't know this about a pen register. This is the first I've heard. Not that I don't believe you, I owe it to myself to independently confirm this. But then again, they can't use it if what you say is true and they cop and listen. They can't use it, but then of course they would. And find a way to make it look like they didn't. If you're right. Fascinating. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. Still tracking down the caller's last point about a pen register. A pen register registers the impulse when you are dialing and uses the impulses to figure out the phone number. It is a way of getting that information without going to the phone company. If you go to the phone company asking for phone records, you will get of a particular number. You'll get the calls that number made, the calls that number received, the date, the time, and the duration. But you will not get the content. You will not get transcripts of the content. And the Supreme Court has held that a pen register is not a search because the petitioner voluntarily conveyed numerical information to the telephone company. It's a case from 1979. So we're still tracking down whether his point was that a pen register is a wiretap that nobody can listen to. And I have to admit, I had not heard that. but I don't like to automatically reject claims. The guy sounded like he was a law enforcement veteran. He said it said on the little cheat sheet I get about what callers say they want to talk about that he had placed wiretaps. So, to the audio sound bites, James Kallstrom is the former director of the New York office of the FBI. He's the current Grand Poobah of the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. He's one of the founders. Retired, decorated Marine, just a genuine all-around American hero. And he spent his working life, the FBI, climbing the ladder of success there to become the director of the New York office. And he is disturbed greatly over what he has seen the FBI become under Comey. Made no bones about it. Last night he was on Lou Dobbs on the Fox Business Network. And he had this to say about how he sees current FBI tactics.
Paul Manafort, that raid into his home was outrageous. The FBI should never be involved. If I was the head of the FBI office, I would have refused to go on that raid and to do that at 4 o'clock in the morning. Wife in bed in her nightgown and the children, they should be sued to the end of the law. Those people involved in that thing, it's outrageous. And this thing with the lawyer, it's still way out of the paradigm of what normally happens.
He's talking about Cohen there, about Trump's personal lawyer, Cohen, Andy McCarthy, who, by the way, we have to signify Trump actually tweeted today that McCarthy is going to be on Lou Dobbs tonight. And McCarthy didn't know it. He said, is this crazy or what? He sent me a copy of the tweet that Trump says, is this crazy or what? And I said, congratulations, you've arrived. The president is promoting your appearance, which means, Andy, people are going to think you've coordinated with Trump. I was just teasing him. I happen to know that Trump admires Andy McCarthy a tremendous amount, his brain, his thinking. And Andy was on Fox and Friends this morning with Brian Kilmeade. Does Mueller have the power to subpoena the president and execute it?
I don't think this is something that ought to be going on between a prosecutor and counsel for the president. Normally, this is where Justice Department leadership jumps in to sort of police these things. You're dealing with the president, whose job in terms of governance of the country, in terms of national security, is obviously much more consequential. They should not, at the Justice Department, allow Mueller to even request an interview unless they can show that there's a serious crime, that President Trump is somehow complicit in it, and that President Trump has information that the special counsel can't get from any other source. If they can't show those things, the Justice Department should not allow Mueller even to request an interview.
Well, that would mean Rosenstein. And, of course, Rosenstein is encouraging Mueller in all this. You know, when I hear Andy talk, Andy is a former prosecutor for the Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office. That's where he prosecuted the blind Sheikh. And so his experience there is legion. And, of course, he loves the office, and he loves the Department of Justice and believes in its mission and so forth. But I'm sorry, and I'm at odds with him I think this whole thing is illegitimate. The real crimes that have taken place that everybody knows, or the irregularities at best, are widely known and are being ignored. This is an open-ended, no crime specified search for a crime, and they can't find any, so they are inventing them. They're inventing crimes for perps to commit, such as Flynn and lying to investigators. And Manafort with things that the Department of Justice previously looked at and decided not to charge. All of a sudden, Mueller is. And it's obvious that Mueller is trying to get Manafort to flip on Trump. But what if Manafort doesn't have anything to flip with? What if Manafort doesn't know? But when I hear Andy say they should not, at the Justice Department, allow Mueller to even request an interview unless they can show that there's a serious crime. They can't because there wasn't even one specified in Mueller's instructions to begin the investigation. And unless they can show the president somehow complicit in it and that President Trump has information the special counsel can't get from any other source, if the whole thing is illegitimate. Now, I know it's Rush, the quest for knowledge into Russian tampering with the election. That's not insignificant. I know it isn't insignificant, but it isn't unique either. It's been going on. The Russians have been attempting, even before them, the Soviets have been attempting and succeeding at infiltrating all walks of American life. They have infiltrated Hollywood. They have clearly infiltrated academia. There are known communists and socialists teaching your kids at various American institutions of higher learning. If we're really worried about Russian interference, there are a lot of places we could look besides the Trump campaign, because it doesn't appear there's any there. But, man, Russian interference is all over. How about the Russian interference with the Southern Poverty Law Center, for example? I wonder if there's any of that. I wonder how many avowed communists work at drive-by news networks or have in the past. I mean, you're serious about Russian collusion? You serious about Russian tampering? It's all over this country, and it has been for decades. And these clowns are trying to make it look like it's never happened before, and it only happened because Trump was in collusion with them. And we know damn well there's no evidence for it, because it would have leaked and they would have gotten rid of Trump by now if they had that. Everybody and their uncle knows that. Mark Penn. Mark Penn was a pollster for Hillary until things turned sour. He worked for Bill Clinton in the 90s. He now is in charge of polling and other things at Harvard University. He was on with Tucker last night, and he unloads here on Mueller. Question, you wrote an amazing piece the other day in The Hill titled Questions I Have for Robert Mueller. Tell us some of those questions that you have.
I spent a year working with President Clinton against Ken Starr and that effort. That was child's play to what's going on here. Mueller has some questions about what the president was thinking when he fired Comey. Well, I certainly have some questions about what he was thinking when first he went to apply for the FBI job with Rosenstein. Boy, when he put that team together and there wasn't a single Trump donor, what was he thinking then? And when he looked at these dossiers and discovered that there was no foundation here, how did he deal with that? And how does he justify these kinds of really stormtrooper tactics?
You know, it's an excellent question. We've asked, what did Comey do when he found out Hillary paid for the damn thing? What's Mueller doing with that information? Mueller knows that that dossier's fake. It's a great question. What did Mueller think when he found out that the Clinton campaign commissioned the very document he's basing the early days of his investigation on? What did he think? Because in any commonsensical mind, that fact should end this investigation. If this dossier, if the whole reason we're here is not legitimate intel, but instead an opposition document, political research document written by somebody hired by the Clintons, then what are we doing here? What did Mueller think when he found out that? What has Mueller done since he found out that the dossier is fake? Back in just a moment. I just confirmed with a member of my own security team, former NYPD, that you can listen in on a pen register. The caller was right. It is illegal unless you have a warrant for it, and you need specific equipment to do it. You need just getting a pen register by itself is not enough to listen, and you have to have the correct equipment to essentially tap in and listen to what's on the line, and that is done. I have been told that pen registers are routinely listened in on, without warrants, that it happens. So I just wanted to confirm the caller. I didn't want to leave him hanging out there. Also, folks, normally we would have carried the beginning of Trump's speech at the NRA, but I can't understand a word. The reverb on the feeds that I have in here I can't understand a word it was saying. The echo and the reverb combined with the applause make it impossible. I've checked 3 different feeds. And probably you would be able to hear it much easier than I can, but it's bad. So that's why we're not jipping. And plus, we don't have that many minutes left. Trump is running through some of the usual things. He's praising to a hilt the politicians that he's going to endorse. And they are all getting standing ovations. Ted Cruz was one of the names he mentioned. Like I say, when he begins campaigning, they're reporting on this blue wave garbage in kind of a vacuum because they're assuming that, Trump is hated and despised, and so he's not going to be able to help anybody. And it's the exact opposite. And he just finished going through the latest unemployment news. African Americans and Hispanics, and he's recounting the campaign. And he said, hey, I told African American, what do you got to lose? Give me a shot. The people you've been voting for haven't done anything for you. What do you got to lose? Give me a shot. And then he went on to herald record low African American unemployment. And he's getting jack-in-the-box standing ovations at the NRA convention. Okay, I tried during the break to listen to more of the president of the NRA, and my feeds, literally, it's impossible. I've never heard it this bad, this reverb. So I don't know what the problem is. I couldn't jip it. But I want to make an observation to you. The people in this audience love this man, and they are showing it at every opportunity. And Trump is loving it himself and having a great time. And I want to share something with you. The drive-by media, which is trying to destroy Donald Trump, cannot stand this. Because they look at this and they see abject evidence of their ineffectiveness. Now, they'll write it off. Yeah, it's the NRA, of course. Of course, we wouldn't expect. But they do. They've spent 2 years trying to destroy this guy. In your mind, they've spent 2 years trying to make you hate this guy, and they're not pulling it off. And I'm telling you, it bothers them. See you on Monday.